Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Welcome to today's reading from a retelling of Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Brilliant as the Sun, a retelling of Srimad Bhagavatam. We are going to be continuing from chapter 7, Daksha's sacrifice. So we were reading earlier how the mystics, they were speaking to Lord Vishnu, then the yogis, and Prasuti, she had also had a request to the Lord Vishnu. And she was asking for the deliverance from Lord. And let us continue. The personified form of the Vedas, this is from verse 40 of chapter 7, came forward and bowed low. Lord, we offer you our obeisance. You have taken charge of the mode of goodness, the source of all auspicious qualities like religious behavior and austerity. Although you supervise the mode of goodness, you are transcendental to matter. Since we, the Vedas, only teach about that which is under nature's modes, we are insufficient for one who wishes to know you. Vishnu asked, who can tell me how I am to be known? Verse 41, the flames of the sacrificial fire flared up and transformed into a fiery person who said, I am Agni, the fire god. By your will, my flames illuminate the sacrifice and accept the offerings which are made mixed with ghee. Vishnu nodded in greeting. Welcome, my dear Agni. My lord, kindly accept my respectful obeisance. You are known as Yajna or sacrifice for two reasons. Firstly, the sacrificial ingredients are your energies. Secondly, all aspects of sacrifice are meant to satisfy you. Vishnu smiled broadly. Agni had revealed the secret to knowing him. The other gods spoke excitedly to each other. Just see, it was not a Brahmin or sage who answered Vishnu's questions. It was our brother Agni. Verse 42, encouraged by Agni's success, one of them said, O Lord, you are the original person. Today you have become visible to us, your servants. Vishnu smiled kindly at them. How do you know I am the original person? The gods looked one to the other. They had not expected the Lord to question them. Then one said, at the end of Brahma's day, when he rests, all the lower planets and creative energies enter back into your abdomen. You alone remain. Vishnu nodded. How do you know this, since your planets are also destroyed at that time? They quickly conferred. Then one said, we heard this from the liberated souls such as Sanak Kumar. They remain on the higher planets during that time discussing your glories. They told us that at the time of devastation, you rest on Shesha, the great snake lying on the turbulent universal waters. Vishnu smiled broadly. Yes, this is true. Please ask for a benediction. In one voice, the god said, Lord, please protect us. The Gandharvas gazed at Vishnu with odd expressions. They spent much of their time singing the glories of the gods, who all thought themselves most important. Now these same gods were humbly beseeching Vishnu for his protection. Truly, he was the Supreme. They offered him prostrated obeisance. As they stood up, Vishnu called them forward. They looked nervously at each other. They were only humble singers. Vishnu beckoned them again. Their hearts beating with excitement. They stepped forward. Vishnu smiled kindly. Tell me what is on your minds. The Gandharvas shivered with ecstasy. We accept only you as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yes, we offer you our respectful obeisance. The other gods are merely your fragmental parts. Even Brahma, Shiva and Indra are your separated parts. You too are great, so too are great sages like Marichi. You alone are the supreme, almighty great. You are so great that creating this universe is like a child's play for you. Vishnu laughed, seeing how pleased he was with the Gandharvas. The Vidyadhars stepped forward, their hands clasped. The leader said, O Lord, not only the Gandharvas but everyone who has a human body should serve you. This is the highest perfection. Unfortunately, because people are deluded by your material energy, they misidentify themselves with their temporary bodies and try to be happy by gratifying their senses. Vishnu's expressions became grave. How can they get free of the attraction of temporary material happiness? The Vidyadhars conferred, and the leader said, Lord, your transcendental pastimes are powerful. Just by hearing and discussing them, a person can be delivered from delusion. Vishnu raised a hand in benediction. Then he called forward the priests who were meant to perform the sacrifice. Verse 45. Brahmins fell before Vishnu. They remembered how pleased he was with Agni. So one said, O Lord, you are sacrifice personified. Another said, you are also the ingredients used in the sacrifice. Others enthusiastically said, yes, you are the clarified butter and the fire itself. Lord, you are the Vedic hymns chanted for the sacrifice. You are the fuel, the flame, the kusha grass and the sacrificial pots. You are even the priests who perform the sacrifice, yes, and the gods too, headed by Indra. Why, you are even the sacrificial animal. Finally, the chief Brahmin concluded, Lord, everything in the sacrifice is you or your energy. Verse 46, the Brahmins first conferred, then their leader spoke. Lord, we hear from the Vedas that many millennia ago you appeared as a great boar to rescue the earth from the ocean. You lifted her as easily as an elephant plucks lotus flower from a lake. So they are talking about the Varaha avatar of the Lord here. That is Boar avatar. When he came as a boar, he lifted the Mother Earth from the ocean. On that occasion, you roared loudly, and that transcendental sound became the hymns used in the sacrifice. Great sages like Sanat Kumar meditate on these prayers and glorify your pastimes. Vishnu's smiling face radiated his pleasure. Verse 47, more Brahmins spoke out, Dear Lord, we have been eager to see you. We hope you are satisfied with us. Even though we were not able to complete the sacrifice, they shot accusatory glances at Shiva's followers. Looking back at Vishnu, they breathed sighs of relief. He still appeared pleased. One of them said, Lord, simply by chanting your holy names, all obstacles are removed. What to speak of when you are personally present? All the Brahmins said, please accept our respectful obeisance. Verse 48, Vishnu raised a hand in blessing and glanced around benevolently. He called Daksha over and said, now your consciousness is purified of false prestige and envy. You may resume the sacrifice which Shiva's followers destroyed or devastated. Daksha hesitated. What should he do with the sacrificial share? Now Vishnu was personally present. Should he offer everything to him? Verse 49, Vishnu told him to distribute everyone's share as normal and give him one share also. After all, I am in everyone's heart, so ultimately I will receive everything. Vishnu's expression became grave. Daksha needed to avoid making further offenses. Verse 50. Always remember that there is no difference between Brahma, Shiva and me. I am both the supreme cause of creation and the supersoul in everyone's heart. Brahma and Shiva are not different from me. Daksha's brow furrowed. Did the Vedas not say that the Supreme Lord is Vishnu only? Vishnu understood his confusion. Verse 51. My dear learned Daksha, it is true that I alone am the Supreme Personality. However, in order to create, I manifest myself as Brahma, the form of passion, and for the destruction, I manifest as Shiva, the form of ignorance, and my own form as Vishnu. And in my own form as Vishnu, I maintain the cosmos. Daksha continued to look baffled. The Vedas say Brahma is a living entity. Shiva is influenced by the mode of ignorance. How can they be non-different from Vishnu? Verse 52, Vishnu said, due to insufficient knowledge, people think that gods like Brahma and Shiva exist independently of me. Some people foolishly think that even the living entities are independent. Daksha said, how is this wrong? The living entities and the gods are my energy, said Vishnu. There is no difference between me and my energy, just as there is no difference between the sun and the sunshine. Daksha nodded. It was starting to make sense. Verse 53, Vishnu continued, furthermore, my devotee makes no distinction between me and any living entity. Daksha's eyes grew wide. Was the Lord saying that everyone was the Supreme? Consider this, said Vishnu. The body has many limbs and organs with different functions, but nobody thinks there is no connection between these bodily parts. When any part of the body is ill, the whole body fights the disease. Similarly, everyone is a part and parcel of me, and as such, no one should be neglected. Daksha carefully considered Vishnu's words. The Lord was helping him understand how, in one sense, everything was different from him, and in another, it was the same. The body is one, and yet within it there is a variety. All the limbs and organs are distinct from each other, but are all one body. Verse 54, Vishnu smiled. There is only one way to achieve real peace, Daksha. You have to see the spiritual connection between all living beings, including Shiva, Brahma, and myself. Ultimately, all living entities are my spiritual expansions. The moon had risen high in the sky in its silvery rays. Maitreya could see that Vidur looked puzzled. He asked him to reveal his confusion. Vidur said, some people argue that we are all God, which I have never accepted. Is Vishnu saying this is true? Is Vishnu saying this is true? Certainly not, replied Maitreya. Many philosophers only stress the unity between us and the Lord. The truth is that there is simultaneously oneness and difference between Vishnu and the living beings. By his analogy of the bodily parts, the Lord shows how we are his parts and parcels. However, just as no part of the body equates to the whole, similarly, none of us are Vishnu's equal. The Lord's devotees must understand both aspects, diversity and unity, in order to attain spiritual perfection. Vidur closed his eyes in thought. How was seeing Vishnu's connection to everyone the only way to attain peace? Of course, if we can see how we are the Lord's energy moved by him, then we have nothing to fear. God is all good and everyone's well-wisher. Whatever is happening is under his benevolent control. If Daksha had this vision, he would not have envied Shiva for not standing up when he entered the assembly. He would have seen Daksha's neglect as Vishnu's perfect arrangement meant for everyone's good. As this revelation dawned, Vidur smiled and asked sage to continue his account. Verses 555 to 57. Maitreya said, enlightened by Vishnu, Prajapati Daksha recommends the ceremonies. He first offered the sacrificial items to Vishnu and then to Brahma and Shiva. He took special care to show Shiva all respect. When the rituals were completed and the gods, along with everyone else, present were satisfied. Daksha and the priests took their baths. Daksha felt elated he had achieved perfection in his religious principles by worshipping Vishnu. Nevertheless, he bowed humbly before the other gods, desiring their blessings. Pleased with him, they offered him benedictions before departing. Vidur said, "It is a shame that Sati did not live to see this wondrous change in her father. Do you know what happened to her?" Verses 58 to 59, Maitreya replied, "I have heard from authoritative sources that she was reborn as a daughter of the king of the Himalayas in the womb of his wife Menaka. In that birth as Himavati, she again married Shiva. She is Krishna's material energy. As such, she has an eternal connection with Shiva, who is Krishna's representative. In the material world, it is her nature to seek Shiva's shelter, in the same way that Krishna's creative energies seek his." I'll repeat that. Krishna's, they're talking about Sati, who was born as Himavati, and she married Shiva again, and that she has an eternal connection with Shiva, who is Krishna's representative. In the material world, it is her nature to seek Shiva's shelter in the same way that Krishna's creative energy seek Shiva's. "This is a fascinating history," said Vidur. "Who did you hear it from?" Verses 60 to 61, the concluding verses of this chapter, chapter 7. "My dear Vidur, I heard the history of Daksha's sacrifice and how it was devastated by Shiva from Uddhava. As you well know, he is not only a great devotee but also a disciple of Brihaspati. He also told me that whoever hears and narrates with faith and devotion this history of Vishnu's participation in Daksha's sacrifice will certainly be purified of all material contamination." Vidur lay down under the canopy of stars. Repeatedly he gave thanks to Krishna for the good fortune of meeting Maitreya, who was delivering to him Krishna's sublime messages. He drifted into a light sleep. I hope that's it. Thank you for joining. Hare Krishna. Wish you all a very happy Appara Ekadashi for tomorrow.